Joe founded Urban3 to explain and visualize market dynamics created by tax and land use policies. Urban3's work establishes new conversations across multiple professional sectors, policymakers, and the public to creatively address the challenges of urbanization. Urban3's extensive studies range geographically over 30 states, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Joe holds a Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Miami, a Master of Architecture and Urban Design from Harvard University. In 2017, he was recognized as one of the 100 most influential urbanists of all time. So we're very excited to welcome Joe Minicozzi.
Okay, so is my mic on? Can you hear me? Cool. How many of y'all have seen me present before? I've been to Norfolk. I know that Mike's seen some of my shows, so you can't shout out the answers, and you in the back. So, I'm going to be doing a whole presentation on taxation, and lots of times this is the look that I get from people. Probably not this crowd, but it's trying to figure out how to explain the cash flow of the cities that we live in and the physical environment that's been shaped by policy is basically what I'm trying to do and explain to you. But first, I'm Mike, y'all can't shout out the answers on this. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. I'm going to give you a simple little warm-up question to warm up your brain. Tell me how many shapes you see in this kid's puzzle. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to count. Let me make sure my counter's going. Ready, go. How many shapes do you see in this picture? Okay, shout out your answers. 1820? 50. All right, we got an overachiever back there. How many kids did you see on the school bus? What time was it on the clock? What I find when people talk about stuff is we have a predisposed question in mind that we're answering. It's called confirmation bias. I basically just anchored your brain on a question. It's incredibly powerful what I can do to your brain by asking you a question. So you didn't see that there were 5 kids on the bus because I didn't ask you. I asked you to look for shapes. Your brain eliminated all of this information that's on there. You didn't see that it was 10 after 10 on the clock, right? I manipulated you by asking a question. I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in as a city planner where I can see the biases walking in the room by the questions people ask and what they're not asking. So I'm going to give you a lot of information, and I just want you to know I'm asking different questions about cities than most people. So the other thing I want you to know is that your city has a DNA, the same way I have a DNA. This is how I started my life when I had hair, 3 months old. My mom put a barrette in my hair, by the way. And this is my trajectory. I'm going to be Papa whether I like it or not, right? You all know this. You know this about your families, or more importantly, I look at my parents, and there are things that I can't change. I can't change that I'm Italian. You'll see how much I wave my hands around when I talk. I also can't change the fact that I've got a predisposition to heart disease in my family. So we went to a steakhouse last night. I ate a steak. I'm going to be eating salad for the rest of the week, right? These are things that I have to do to maintain my life. So who's Chesapeake's grandmother or grandfather? What's Chesapeake going to be when it grows up? Do you even have a model? I go to city after city and nobody can give me their model. No one can name a city. This is what we're going to be. This is the city that we're trying to avoid. In Asheville, we have conversations about Atlanta and Charlotte. And so I want to know, what did they do wrong? What did my grandfather do wrong to have his issues? That's all. I'm going to give you a ton of information. If you can't give me a city or come walking out of this room without thinking about another place, find somebody that's grown the way that you did. That's the easiest answer to anything I can give you. Okay, so let's talk. Who's been to Asheville? Okay, I'm from Asheville. Bluegrass Mountains, our Blue Ridge Mountains, bluegrass music, beer. We're 125,000 people. We have 40 breweries, 40. We drink a lot. Like any quirky little mountain town, we have men dressed as nuns on tall bikes that eat fire. It's your typical place. I'm joking. Asheville didn't start that way. This is how Asheville started. This is a shot of it in the 1800s. For those of you that have been to Asheville, you've actually stood at this location. This is the same location 20 years later. We like to say the 3 T's made Asheville grow: trains, tourism, and tuberculosis. It was the winter retreat for a lot of industrialists. also people from the south to come up in the cool mountain air. We had the second streetcar line in the entire country. Presidents came to visit. And then in the 1920s, we were growing 20% in population every single year of the decade. A 27-year-old man built that skyscraper with the gargoyles on it. We were the second largest city in North Carolina. Did you all know that? The only city that was bigger than us was Winston-Salem. We were bigger in population than Charlotte, than Raleigh. We achieved the highest debt per capita of the entire United States. Number one. And when the books were audited, we thought we had $5 million in the bank. It turned out we had $18,000 in the bank. Oops, a little clerical error there. Our entire city council was indicted. The mayor committed suicide. That's leadership. Kidding. This is what our city faced. We fell flat on our face. Thomas Wolfe, famous American author, anybody that's studied English has read his books. He wrote a book called Look Homeward Angel about Asheville, and basically just changed the name of the city and people's names, but it's basically a nonfiction piece about how batty the city was. And I love what he wrote. Asheville has squandered fabulous sums. They've flung away the earnings of a lifetime. They've mortgaged those of a generation to come. They have ruined a city. And in doing so, they've ruined themselves, their children, and their children's children. Asheville is in the South. These are not things you say openly about your community. It's called being ugly, right? Incidentally, he was pretty much banned from Asheville. His second book was called You Can't Go Home Again, for obvious reasons. But he was right. This would take several generations for us to bail out of. Asheville is the only city in the entire country that chose to pay off its obligated debt. Most cities took the New Deal program and opted out through bankruptcy, basically. But Asheville paid off their last bond in 1976. Here it is. You got these three white guys here burning the last bond with Miss Asheville in her tiara right there. Billy Graham shows up. It's a big deal when Billy shows up. But check this out. It's the third headline in the paper behind abortions and somebody dying in a prison fire in McDowell County. McDowell County is 2 counties over. This wasn't even our prisoner. This is how embarrassed we were about this. And when we got out of debt, we started doing what every other American city did. We cut a highway through the north side of downtown, which became the Crosstown Expressway. And my favorite move was the blowing up of Bowcatcher Mountain. They literally blew the mountain open. The citizens, and I don't know if y'all have worked with the DOT, but the citizens actually asked for a tunnel rather than blow the mountain open. And DOT's like, we don't have technology to do a tunnel. And everybody's like, there's literally a tunnel right there on Tunnel Road, about a football field away. And this is the moronic stuff that we do to ourselves. We just blew the mountain open. You know how much real estate we lost there? People's houses? Because of this stupid move that DOT wanted to do. Incidentally, you can come and do rock climbing there or something. Anyway, on the other side of the mall, the mall happened and our downtown died. So you probably didn't visit this Asheville. This is Asheville in the 1980s, 1990s. Did y'all visit this Asheville? So we had this attitude that we weren't urban, we're rural mountain people, we don't want a city, we're not Charleston, that's the old city, that's not us. And there's lots of people that did things to change, but I worked for this guy's company. This is Julian Price. Julian inherited a tremendous amount of money, and he put $15 million into a for-profit real estate development company. So our job was to have a revolving fund. What we did is we fixed buildings, we bought buildings, but we seeded businesses. So 75% of our money went into the buildings. Our time was the direct opposite. 75% of our time went to the businesses. So we'd fix a building, we'd put an entrepreneur at the ground floor, but we'd spend a tremendous amount of time with that entrepreneur making sure they didn't fail. So this is one of our buildings before and after. These were an old hotel. 400 to 500 square foot apartments in this. So let me ask you all a question. Who wants to live in a 400 to 500 square foot apartment? Show of hands. What's that?
People in New York.
Let me ask you all a different question. Who in this room has lived in a 400 to 500 square foot apartment in your lifetime? That's our marketing question, right? It's not about New York. It's not about what you think is going on. This is about, there are 28 people in Asheville right now that are recently divorced, new to town, recently graduated, or just want a smaller space. When we went to the bank, we needed to do a $4 million financing to close this. The banks wouldn't fund it. They literally said, could you put $4 million in the bank and we'll give you a $4 million mortgage close? Why? And like no one would live in these. And we're just like, well, no one has the opportunity to live in them yet. There are no apartments downtown. By the way, this has been 99% leased up ever since. And we stimulated a housing market because there were people that wanted it. Don't look at what you think you want. Ask the question about the broader community. Understand what cities are. So we did a project, this is going to be a little bit more of a therapy session right now. This is a surface parking lot that we owned. We were approached by a hotel developer. The only thing that was on here was the Hot Dog King, which no one was coming to Asheville for that. And it's basically just a big pit. It was a big pit parking. We were renting the parking out. We knew what the demand was. There was offices and apartments across the street that were paying for the parking. We were covering our taxes on this. The hotel developer approached us. We read the downtown master plan, and it called for a joint venture public-private parking garage, which we're going to build a parking garage and wrap taxes around it. So the hotel developer was awesome. They're like, we'll work with you. So here's the hotel. We're going to do housing on the backside. We sort of had an idea of a third building sitting like a stirrup over the top of a parking garage. When my boss was writing up the contract, I don't, any attorneys in the room? Yeah, so it's like he wrote a 68-page condominium document with the city on who's going to own what. I'm like, dude, no one's going to read that, particularly politicians. And it's not their fault. They're not attorneys. They're not going to like beat their way through all that language. So we made a cartoon to show this is the city's fee simple right here, this green box. We're going to wrap public interest projects, PIP. We're going to wrap taxes in orange. This is our housing on the backside. This is the hotel. These are all the legal agreements as a cartoon. So this is how we talk to people that are busy. They're not going to read these things. And it's not their fault. They've got day jobs. There's somebody like, there's a data center that everybody's fussing about. You have to make it easy for people to understand. This is how we got dragged through the newspapers. That's my boss is a boss hog fat cat developer. In the newspaper that we started, thank you very much, we had to take our lumps and our beating to kind of keep going through. Somebody at the city, anybody work for the city here? My friend who's a city planner, Sasha Verchinsky, she said to me, she goes, God, Joe, that only took 4 years to get that contract signed. That was just to sign the contract to start the project. 4 years. And I said, Sasha, look, it's in your downtown master plan to do it right there. Here it is right there on our property to build this joint venture public parking garage. We're doing what you asked. 4 years is not fast. Do you know how many human beings my wife and I can produce in 4 years? 5. We can make 5 people. And she's like, oh. If we don't understand that we're in this together and you're going to do this to the local developer and beat them up and take 4 years, I see there's a developer in the back. Would you take 4 years to just grind your face across the carpet? No. Who's going to do that? So we got it built. By the way, what I'm showing you is what I did at the State of the Downtown address in 2018, I think. So there it is under construction in 2015. So here's the taxes it paid in 2008. Here's the taxes it paid 10 years later. So that's a 3,000% increase in taxes on that property. My boss was like, Joe, you always make pictures. Why don't you make it a picture? I'm like, all right, fine. Here's 11,000 next to 300,000. So what would you rather have? So we could have just sold the land to the developer and just said, go build your hotel, we're out. And we could have taken that dollar and put it into other central business district real estate and made $1.70 over that window. Or we could have put our money in NASDAQ and made 3 times that. But we wanted the community to make money. We wanted to do this together. So here's what we got in taxes as a community. That seems like a pretty good return. This is how we're building our wealth in our community. Let's do it jointly, right? Incidentally, that was 2018. I've since updated it a couple years ago. Here's where we're at now in 2024. So do you want a 39% return on your investment? Wouldn't you like that? Are we even talking this way as a community? Do we even understand how we're in this together? What's your risk? So what I found, y'all got quiet. Is this too nerdy first thing in the morning? What I find is that we have these kind of semantic conversations, these emotional conversations, and no one's bringing any data to the table. No one's ever talking about facts. So why are we doing that? How are we in this together? If you look up the word incorporate in the Oxford American Dictionary, it says to constitute a company, a city, or other organization is a legal corporation. So by law, Chesapeake's a corporation, right? Your state's a corporation. Our country's a corporation. Joe Biden said this on the Stephen Colbert Show in 2016. The United States is the largest corporation in the world. I'm such a nerd. This is the legal code that lists us as a federal corporation on the bottom here. So if anybody wants to look it up, go for it. That's why Citizens United went the way that it did. So Asheville at $14 billion is 7 times the value of Ted Turner. I don't know if y'all know our politicians, but I wouldn't trust them to run CNN. You know, it's like they have to take that seriously, though. So my city, and also I don't know if you know this about North Carolina, the state of North Carolina made it illegal for my city to annex land. We're the only city in the entire state that can't annex land. So those acres are all that we have. This is particularly true for y'all because you can't annex any more land in Virginia either. So those acres are your crop. That's all that you have to grow, right? If you think of land like production, like the way we talk to a farmer's going to talk in economic terms. Crop yield per acre, water per acre, labor per acre. So here's a crop. This is a building that we fixed. This is the old JCPenney's department store. We put in ground floor retail, second floor office, and upper story residential. We did this because the city invested in the public realm. The city built the streetscape. This guy, Chris Peterson, accused us of being subsidized and said, y'all didn't pay for that. Cool. The entire world can walk on it, but he's right. We didn't pay for that sidewalk. So we took the value from $300,000 to $11 million. That's a 3,500% increase in taxes. Do y'all have a 401k plan that does that? Wouldn't you like that return? And again, pushback. People are like, well, Joe, that's cute. That's $11 million. This Walmart over here is $20 million. So 20 is double 11, or almost double, right? If you just take that number, you're missing productivity. You're not understanding apples to apples. So realize that Walmart took 34 acres of our farm versus our 0.2 acres. You shouldn't be looking at gross real estate value. So per acre, we're producing 100 times more property taxes, double the sales taxes. Who would have thought that a furniture store, a tattoo shop, and a beauty salon is double the sales taxes of a Walmart? But it is. Obviously more residents and more jobs. So on which side of the ledger do you want to have your investment? And this isn't to throw shade at Walmart. This isn't to blame Walmart. They have perfected a model. You build a cheap building, you blow through a ton of land, it's really efficient. They only have, I mean, seriously, how many, walk through a Walmart and tell me how many employees you see. I want you to realize I'm showing you some math here. I don't have a finance degree, I'm not a banker. I'm trained as an architect to draw pictures. We've gotten ourselves into a bias on how we look at math and how we look at economic data by bringing the same questions to the table over and over again. And I'll give you a different example. Imagine if we're talking about having coffee and talking about cars, and I said my truck gets 650 miles per tank. You'd immediately say that's stupid. Joe, all tanks are different sizes. We don't say miles per tank, we say miles per gallon. The numbers just changed. And we should all be driving BMW Acetas at 70 miles per gallon. Sorry to the Prius owners, but 1955 technology is more efficient. It's also way more dangerous. If you have a head-on collision in that thing, you're stuck. I'm making a joke to kind of prep you for information, to get you to see that we asked the wrong questions. So this is about 60 different cities kind of mashed up. For every dollar of taxes somebody in the county pays to the county. Now y'all don't have a county, but you are a county. You're the land area of a county. So for folks that are out there outside the more urbanized area, for every dollar they pay per acre, the city dweller, the urban dweller is paying about 5 times that. Here's the Walmart, the mall, a 2-story building on Main Street, 3-story building, and a 6-story building. We're not talking high rises here. These are all under the high rise threshold. As you mix up your stories, as you densify, you're essentially stacking your dollar bills. Does that make sense? This is true in Driggs, Idaho, Durham, North Carolina, and Dallas, every city that we see. Now the opposite is true. The more I waste your land and build you a cheap, dumb box, the less taxes I pay. Don't hate the player, hate the game, but you better understand the game while you're playing it, right? These are rules that are in there. Incidentally, any tax assessors in the room? Anybody hang out with a tax assessor? I crashed an assessors conference, and it makes a planning conference feel like Burning Man. It's like the squarest conference ever. This guy gets up at 8:30 in the morning. He's the head of real estate for Walmart. He did this amazing presentation on how crappy his buildings are. That's awesome. 3,000 assessors, one meeting, I'm getting 3,000 tax bills lowered with one presentation. Think how smart that is. Now, I'm trained as an architect. I'm having a coronary in the back of the room. I used to work in government. I'm like, how is he getting away with this? Assessors are agnostic. If it's a cheap building, it's a cheap building. They're like, thank you very much for the numbers. I went up to the microphone and I asked him, I said, Mr. Terrell, what's the useful life of one of your buildings? And he goes, 15, 20 years. We designed the building to depreciate it as fast as possible. We'll build another building to depreciate it down again. The buildings are throwaway for us. Have you guys experienced this here? Have you seen a strip mall go dark? Turns into a church or something like that? Yeah. Not yet. It's designed for that. These aren't permanent structures. These aren't anything that somebody takes a postcard in front of, right? So this is what they do. So this is their corporation investment in your corporation. Again, don't hate the player, hate the game, understand the game if you're going to play it. So their investments, 15, 20 years. That's the life cycle of a cat. Sorry, I'm a dog person. I'm making a joke here. I would argue that people don't understand it. One is we don't have a conversation about it where we could understand it. Lots of times it's in jargon. Generally the bankers understand it, but no one else does because it's all habits that we're in. So if I can show you your brain and I can show you your creative thought process in green and your brainstem activity in blue, I can actually use technology to see inside your head. Why can't I do an economic MRI of my community? So at that State of the Downtown address, by the way, our state representative called my city a cesspool of sin. What do you do when you're on the board of directors for a downtown association and your state representative says that? I've got 2 voters out in the county for every 1 voter in the city. He's counting the politics. He's pitting them against us. So the chair of the county commission was there, and I said, okay, Commissioner Gant, this is non-taxable. This is Mount Mitchell, 0 value. This is Pisgah Forest, so the Blue Ridge Parkway comes through town. Those are parks, big federal parks. They pay us $0 in taxes, right? Just to be crude about it. I've got green is low value. This is Big Ivy up here, low value. This is the Biltmore Estate, this big purple splotch. That's over $100 million of value. When the Cecil family shows up at one of our council meetings, they own the Biltmore Estate. We all genuflect. They have a $100 million house. Cool, right? Well, that $100 million house is 180,000 square feet sitting on 8,000 acres of land. It's like having the biggest gas tank. So of course it's valuable. So rather than total value, here's value per acre. And let me just show it to you in 3D. So I asked the chair of the county commission, I said, Commissioner Gant, can you tell me where downtown is? And he goes, that big purple mountain. I said, you're welcome. You're welcome for all the tax dollars that we put out in the county. We all pay 6 mils across this model. Think of a 6 mil thick blanket dropped on this model. Where are you getting all of your money? And he goes, the downtown. I said, yeah. You're also getting, this is Black Mountain right here. I don't know if y'all know Black Mountain. It's only 13,000 people. It got hit real bad with the Hurricane Helene. That's its little main street. It's like the tallest building's 2 stories tall, or 3 stories tall. So you can see potency in our downtown. You can also see our suburban sprawl on the south side. That's all brand new stuff, but it's not really producing. So let's do a CAT scan to see what it looks like, and let's be honest about the information. So what I'm giving you is a ratio. I love this quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson. Ratios of numbers are highly powerful probes of structures and forms of things. Take that ratio thinking and do mathematical analysis on your place and be agnostic about it. When I first started doing this, 12 years ago or 15 years ago, I would always get this pushback, like, that's just Asheville, you're different. It's like, okay, here's Kansas City and Kansas City, Kansas. You can see they've got 2 downtowns, actually. They've got several. They've got the original downtown at Westport, Midtown, Downtown, and then Country Club Plaza. This is Bozeman, Montana. Y'all seen a pattern? Brevard, North Carolina, 8,000 people. Their mayor, when he saw this, his name goes by the name Mayor Jimmy. Mayor Jimmy's like, well, I can tell where downtown is. I'm like, good for you. You got it, right? We did a project up in Norfolk. Here's their city, and you can see the potency of their downtown. Incidentally, the Green Light Hotel is the most potent building in the entire city. Did y'all know that? So this is their downtown. Here's a ratio. So what we typically find is that if you think of the city like an egg, you've got a yolk and you've got an egg white, right? The yolk is your downtown. How much of that portfolio takes up the portfolio of the rest of the city. So the footprint of the downtown is 0.1% of the whole portfolio. Yet from a property tax production standpoint, it's 0.8%. Those don't look like big numbers when you look at a pie chart, but when you divide 1 into 8, it rounds up to 1.9. So for every square inch that it takes, it's punching 9 times above that in the financial portfolio. That's highly efficient, right? So think of your city like that. Think of your city as having a core and an egg white to it. And you want to shoot for at least 1 to 6. So here's some examples of some properties. This is Walmart. It's about $1 million an acre. I'll just go ahead and put it on the bottom down here. This is their Military Circle Mall, about 1.4, so just barely above the Walmart. And what's in there. Now we're at $12 million, $29 million. What's this one? $36 million. So the tallest building is not the most potent one here. Like this one's more potent. And then you look at their old stuff. This is the habit that we built when we built cities that we've sort of ignored in the last 70 to 80 years. So here it is, built in 1915, or this picture's from 1915, $141 million an acre for the Glasslight Hotel. Okay, let's go back. This is 29 or 30 million. The Glasslight Hotel, that's been in the portfolio for over 100 years, is 141 million. This is 16 million, 12 million, 21 million. So I grabbed your mall yesterday. Actually, I'll come back to this. Sorry. Let me just delete that. These are more buildings downtown. So 22 million, 14 million, 18 million, 15 million, 15 million. These should be unsettling numbers to think about, particularly when you see that Walmart at $1 million. These buildings are 15 times, 16 times, 20 times. So that Lorraine apartment buildings, this is its physical footprint, and then the Dominion Tower, this is its physical footprint. So to get that $77 million, they had to blow through a lot more acres to get there. So if we did the same thing and reversed the math and say how many of the things on the left does it take to get the thing on the right, it's about 8 of those buildings. So if you just built 8 of these, it would equal the same $77 million of that. How you use land is critically important. This is your crop. Now, unfortunately, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, you did this land grab and grabbed 300 square miles and didn't think through how you're gonna farm it. And you just blew through a big chunk of it. And this is the situation that you're in. So we didn't have this habit back then because we were very much tied to our infrastructure and how we grew cities. Our great-grandparents did. They were highly efficient. They packed things in. They didn't have an attitude that like, oh, we're not gonna build Manhattan. They actually wanted to do that because it meant wealth for them. It meant wealth that would continue for generations, for kids' kids. We've lost that habit. Not to be pointed about it, I just see this all over the country. And as you stack your stories up, you stack your potency. As you get less dense, you get less revenue. It's that simple. So this is their model, and this, again, this is on, we have this on video. I can give you the whole PDF of this document. Productivity comes from density. Now I know there's biases. People are like, well, Joe, I didn't move to Manhattan. I didn't move to Charleston. I don't want to be dense. Okay. So we did an analysis of Gwinnett County, Georgia. Y'all know Gwinnett County, Georgia? Gwinnett County, Georgia is outside of Atlanta. I had never heard of Lawrenceville, which is the county seat, when I went down there. I was under explicit directions that I was not allowed to say 4 words when I went to that community. I'm not making this up. They told me I couldn't say the word urban, city, town, or municipal in the presentation. And I was like, why? And my client was the Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Director, Kelly Brownlow. She goes, Joe, these are just ugly words in our community. People get all wound up if you use these words. Just don't do that. We're rural. What do you do when your company's called Urban3? Am I just 3? But I played along. I was like, fine, you know. And I called up Kelly and I was like, Kelly, y'all are 812,000 people. She goes, yeah, but sugar, look, we're 460 square miles. We're huge. Okay, I can do math. I can divide 812,000 people into 460 square miles. This is their density. So there are 1,900 people per square mile. Each of these people is 100 people, which is less dense than DeKalb. DeKalb has Decatur and a little chunk of Atlanta in it. So I'm presenting to their leadership that night before the public presentation, and I put other data up because I had other data. So and I asked the community, I said, so look, this is Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. You're 200 people denser than Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. What's in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina? Yeah, Charlotte. You're 600 people denser than Davidson County, Tennessee. That's Nashville. Both of these places have professional football teams. There's no such thing as the Buford Cowboys, is there? Like, this is what you built, y'all. So this is Austin. You're double the density of Austin, Raleigh, Asheville, and Chapel Hill. This is what rural looks like. I don't know what y'all did here. And when we did their model, this is how it came out. And I asked my analyst, I'm like, Josh, could you turn it on its side? And he starts turning the model. By the way, this is the last farm right there. That's the last farm. They've basically built the entire county, the same stuff across the entire county. They didn't change their habit. It's like a 1970s shag carpet straight across the whole damn thing, right? So this is why I was freaked out. This is what I typically see. And I can see Hillsborough, Carrboro, and Chapel Hill, and I can see their downtowns in each of them. The data's telling me a story. This is what y'all got. So this is the most potent building in all of the county. It was built in 1920 or something like that. So they have done nothing to be more potent than what their great-grandparents left them. These are choices. These are choices by the decisions they made, by the questions they asked, in their own ignorance. So this is the most potent building in Gwinnett County at $8 million an acre. All of these places are less dense and more potent. So just to rub it in a little bit, we put an economic heart monitor of the 3 counties, and basically laid the models on their side and looked at the profile of how they operate, and I call it the economic heart monitor to pulse it out. So we've got a peak value of 192 million in Nashville. The less dense Austin is peaking out at 476, and y'all are flatlining at 8. The resistance that I got from their county commissioners that night was hilarious. So one county commissioner just kept on yelling at me, "We're not urban." I said, "Ma'am, I never used that word." I said, "Look, you got all of this same horizontal infrastructure right there is this stuff. You don't have any of the vertical stuff to pay for it. Are you guys broke yet?" And she goes, "Oh, yeah, we're broke." She's like, "But we're not urban." I said, "Ma'am, I never called you urban. I called you dense." And I should have said pun intended. You know, it's just, look at the data, get past your biases, you know? So it's not about what you want. I want to be 6 foot tall and have a full head of hair. You all should buy me a pickleball court. Like, what the hell kind of nonsense is that? That's how we're going to run our public meetings? About what we want without looking at what we've got? So that's retail tax. Sales tax, y'all are in a sales tax state. These are how all the different states operate. But in Colorado, the cities run mostly off the sales tax. So this is just looking at every state. Here's Virginia right about here. You're mostly property tax at a local level, a little bit of sales tax. You generally don't want to run your city off sales tax. My favorite 3 are Louisiana, Arkansas, and Alabama. I generally wouldn't recommend doing things that Louisiana, Arkansas, and Alabama do. Think of it this way. What happens in a recession? Nobody buys a boat, TV, car, and all of a sudden you can't afford your city. It's kind of a crazy way to run a municipality. But anyway, counties get the majority of this, the property tax in Colorado. So this is the property tax model. And I said, look, the county should be all over fixing downtown. When is the county doing that? South Durango is where the mall, the Home Depot, the Walmart, all of that's down here. This is their retail strip. This is their jobs per acre, retail per acre. So downtown is still killing it in retail. We had 2 businesses that shared their books. These are 2 businesses on Main Street, a bookstore and a coffee shop, and we compared them against the Walmart. So here's Peter's bookstore, and here's Tim's coffee shop. And these are your Main Street entrepreneurs. Look at Tim's background. I'm like, dude, what's up with all the kitchen supplies? You're a coffee shop. He goes, people buy it. This is what you get in your community when people know the community. They actually can meet the community's needs, and they stimulate. That's the entrepreneur, right? The person that's going to stick their neck out and try something different. So here's the land consumed on the right versus the left. And again, same pattern. Here's the county property taxes per acre. So who would have thought that these 2 little shops, what is that, 15 times the property taxes per acre, 4 to 4.5 times the sales taxes per acre of a Walmart, and then jobs. This is one level of economics. If you're going to be just crude about money, which would you rather have, the blue side or the red side? The blue side. Now let's ask the next economic question. Who's paying their retail sector employee more per hour? The small local businesses or the Walmart? Probably the small businesses. It's not going to be a lot more. It'll be a nickel or a quarter more an hour, but it's going to be more because they know the kids that work there. They're tied into the community. Now let's ask the third level of economic questions. Who's hiring the local attorney, the local bank, the local CPA? The blue side. This is how we inadvertently shoot ourselves in the foot by not thinking deeper and asking different questions. It's called economic spin. Who's volunteering for a group like this? Who's on the planning commission? Who's sponsoring a Little League team, the blue side or the red side? We have to think about our community at a grassroots level first, bubbling up and giving those opportunities. So here's the total productivity of all of Durango. And by the way, I just want you to know this is one of my favorite maps. Look at North Carolina. It is illegal for me to look at this data that I just showed you. I find that criminal. So I'm going to keep on showing this map until my state changes its policies, because I just find that it's incredibly painful to see, progressive places like Colorado, California, Louisiana, or South Carolina, where I can get this data, but not North Carolina. Do y'all even look at this data? So you have some ability to see it because you have partial access in your community. So if you're not measuring this data, you can't manage it. If you're not asking questions about it, you're just flying blind. That's the revenue side. Let's talk about the cost for a second. Are we good? Okay. Because you guys are quiet. I usually get like a lot more reaction out of people.
Impressed they were Chesapeake.
Okay. Well, okay. I highly recommend this guy's book. This is Jack Stack. He wrote this book called The Great Game of Business. He talks about transparency inside business. So I share when we get a contract with the community, my team sees it, but they also see what we pay in rent, our 401k plan. They understand that there's costs of business, that it's not just going in my pocket when they see a contract. So that sharing of information helps my business succeed. Well, the same is true of government. Everything should be transparent in government. We should all, because we're all corporate investors or shareholders in that corporation, right? As a taxpayer you are. So this is the revenue model of Annapolis, Maryland. One of the things that we look for when we analyze the cities, we're trying to figure out when you had your heart attack, what happened in your history made you change. This is their population growth, and this is our, think of it like an EKG. We could see that bump that happens right there. Why did that happen? Why did your population shift like that all at once? And it comes back to when they annexed. So this is their city on the left, and on the right is like a square pie chart of data, basically. So this is the footprint that they took up of what their city is now, right? So they annexed land in the 1800s. They built more than double their city. Here's what's really mind-blowing. They actually increased their density while they annexed land. Let that wash over you for a second. None of us in our contemporary lifestyles could put our brain into what the 1800s looked like for cities. And what was phenomenal is we actually got denser as we grew. Our paradigm of what we know, I don't think there's anybody here that's 150 years old. Our paradigm of what we know, we don't have that memory. We don't understand that. So here's World War II. It's a Navy town, so they lost some people. They came back from the war, right? And then in 1 year, in 1951, they did this. And it just cratered their density. So for all the people that are like, I want density, I don't want density, I want a big yard, I don't want to be near anybody, cool. Well, there's a cost to that. They kept on annexing land. They brought their population up. When I was out there, there were people that were complaining that all this new growth is making them too dense. Y'all have these people? Every city I go to has got those people. I'm like, cool. You guys are basically 1855 density. Your great-grandparents were way more dense. Now, I understand you don't want that, but you're going to have to pay for it. So when you look at your pipes and what you grew, so here's their population growth. They grew, since the yellow tree ring, they grew themselves by a factor of 3, but they grew their land area by a factor of 10. So you're basically 3 times more expensive than what your grandparents were, the amount of feet of pipe, road, and everything else that you got per person. As long as you can afford it, great. But this is all, this joke only works for certain people. This is all spatial analysis, right? Anyway, here's the other thing for the finance people, actually business owners in the room. I don't know if y'all know this. When I work with cities It's kind of phenomenal. Because I don't have any training in finance, I ask really dumb questions. What I find in city after city, and you look at it's called the ACFR, it's your financial documents for your city. They list roads and pipes as assets. When I talk to city finance folks, I say, look, I got a business, I got a computer, I've got a delivery van, I've got an office. I can sell you the office, the van, and the computer. Can Chesapeake pick up its roads and sell them to Norfolk? No. You're stuck with them forever. That's a liability, it's not an asset. So your city is essentially flying blind because they look at it as if they could sell it. Look at all this money we've got. It's like, no, that's what you owe in debt for that stuff. As a developer, when I build those roads and give them to you, they're yours forever. So another way of looking at it is, if anybody knows accounting, cities run on cash accounting, not accrual accounting, which is a little mind-blowing for me. So here's when Annapolis built all of their roads, looking backward. And you can see the roads that they built in 1910. They come back for their first rebuild. Every 50 years, pretty much, you're going to rebuild the road. You're going to probably do stuff every 15 to 20 years, some millage and maintenance, but you have to do a reconstruction over a certain number of those life cycles. So if I build the road and give them to you as a developer, it becomes that liability every 10 to 15 years and a really big liability 50 years later. With that liability, when they got all of this new expense right here, look what they did. They let out more development. We needed more money. We needed more growth. Cool. That's a heck of a lot more roads you just built. So this comes back with its first rebuild here in 2030 and brings along with it the 1910 roads for their second rebuild. And then this comes back for a third rebuild and a fourth. Y'all see a pattern here? So they're sitting right here without ever looking backward to how they got in the position that they're in. As you look at and we had a conversation last night about y'all need new revenue, there's new growth that you need to do. Why? Do you understand where you're leaking your money? If you do the Greenbrier change, is it going to give you more money, or are you going to be still in the same net position? I don't know. Are you doing that math? So roads and pipes, everything, you're stuck with it forever. It's another joke. I'm into my 80s and 90s jokes. I'm a Gen Xer. What can I say? So they have enough stormwater to build end-to-end a pipe to Wilmington, Delaware from Annapolis. Their water goes to Philly. Their sewer goes to Trenton. And their roads go to Bridgeport. Was there a meeting that they had 50 years ago where they said, we're going to build a road to Bridgeport every 50 years? No. You looked up your roads last night. What did you say it was? 2,400. 2,400 miles of road. Y'all got enough road to go to Phoenix. Let that wash over you. This is the position that you're in. And it's better to know that and have an honest conversation rather than fly blind and say, I don't want development. It's like, cool. How are you going to pay for that road to Phoenix? So this is what they're currently paying in those funds. This is what they should be paying. So as a business, when I buy a building, or like if I own this building, I know that it's got $100,000 worth of air conditioning on the roof. And every 12 to 15 years, I have to replace that air conditioner. So I have to squirrel away money called a reserve account to pay for it. I don't go to a bond market and buy money. Sorry to the bankers. But there's cost to buying that money. We call it debt service, and really what that is that's money that you're paying a bank for the privilege of having their money to fix a road that you own. And we tell cities, we're like, that's your choice if you want to, but you should have, you're currently in an operational deficit of $24 million. So here's their money coming out of the ground, and then we did the same for their costs, and yeah, the downtown's expensive. We took the costs and sunk them down in the ground and put the money on top of it. This is the side view if it was floating in the Chesapeake Bay like a boat. So you've got the sunk costs below water and revenue coming out of the ground above water. And this is the cost of that neighborhood to be there. So if you do a net position of the revenue against the cost, this is the net position of the city. And here it is in 3D. So this is the bottom view. We're nerds. We like to make cool models. So this is if you're a worm looking up at the city. But basically, if you go back to that original sin and say, let's split the city in two, into the pre-51 city and the post-51 city, the pre-51 city has some negative to it, and so does the post-51 city has some positive to it at 21%. But the positives are different, especially against the cost. So the pre-51 city is $1.4 million of net positive gain. You still have some negative stuff in there, right there, you know. The new city is at a deficit of $21 million. Now, I know that we have some math people in the room, but for the non-math people, let me ask you a complex question. Can you cover $20 million of loss with $1 million? No. So this is how they're bleeding out. And we recommended doing some stuff in here. This is going to be a different kind of surgery in here. It's going to require more effort, more work. But you need to do something different out here. And you shouldn't just be conscious that you're subsidizing the suburban area with your urban core. But out here, you need to do something to start to level the playing field. And this isn't telling people go to move in a Manhattan apartment. There are places like that for folks that want it. 30% of every marketplace folks want a more urban lifestyle. They want to be able to walk to a coffee shop. They don't want to have to mow a lawn. Fine, give them that opportunity. But don't just foist them into a suburban environment and tell them to just get by. That's not going to work. So I want you to realize what I'm showing you here is that we're operating governments like a rotary telephone, and we've got new technology that we can see this stuff now. So we're just using GIS technology. Y'all have it inside your government. Just use it better. By the way, this is Norfolk. So they're not as bad, but there's still $116 million is a lot of money to be in the hole. Percentage-wise, they're not as bad. So here's Norfolk's population change. So basically, do y'all know redlining? Everybody know redlining? Who doesn't know redlining? Okay, redlining was basically in 1934, the federal government changed mortgages from 7-year mortgages to 30-year mortgages. They're trying to get more people into single-family housing. And what they did is it's called the Home Ownership Loan Corporation. They were going to back mortgages. And for a window of time, they said, we're going to do this, but we don't know what it's like in your community to know what's good real estate and bad real estate. So every city that was 50,000 in population and more across the entire country adopted local maps. The local maps had 4 colors. Green was good real estate, blue is okay real estate, yellow was declining, and red was considered hazardous. The local communities deemed hazardous neighborhoods by people's race and ethnicity. So in the 1930s, Italians were the big immigrant class coming in. So watch out for me, I'll take down your real estate value. We were considered hazardous and as an infiltration of immigrants. And you find this in the language of the documents. It's actually written in the Norfolk documents. But also the other neighborhoods were black neighborhoods. Now I can change my name to Smith. I can pass as white until you see me move my hands around when I talk. But for black folks, you can't change your skin. So you find this, it's went on from 1934 to 1968. So you see this disinvestment in neighborhoods, an economic change in neighborhoods for 30 years. And so what you find, particularly in Norfolk, you see an exodus of people to the neighboring communities around. And this is also, Hampton did it as well. But anyway, that's why you see this kind of drop right here, is that's when folks started getting other options and other places to move, and they did. Or we call that white flight inside city planning. So here's what's going on with their pipe per person. So they're still, even though they're declining and flatlining in population, why would you add more pipe to this? And again, just do the math on this and just be agnostic about it. So they've gone from 15 feet of pipe per person in 1960 to 36 feet of pipe per person today. So it's just like, these are their choices. I don't care what they do. I just want them to look at the math and understand the position they're in. So if you can't see this, you can't fix what's going on in the bucket. Just one last thing. The reason why I was at the assessors conference is I find some unbelievably crazy stuff when we look at property assessment. This is Cheyenne, Wyoming, and this is my last example before I close. This is just turning off all the buildings and look at the land value per acre. There's no buildings in this picture. If you look up here, see everything's blue? This is how you expect your neighborhood dirt. Everybody's got the same value per acre of dirt. Now we do these models because I want to do a quick CAT scan to figure out policy. What the hell is going on over here? How is that neighborhood, like this one part of the street right here is blue at $15,000 an acre, and when you get to the end of the road right here, that building's red, it's like $45,000 an acre. I want to know, is that policy? Did somebody have a bad day at the office? I don't know. Is it built into the computer model? So they have a computer model called CAMA. It's basically an Excel spreadsheet that prints out data on properties. They don't have enough assessors to look at each property, so they create a mathematical model that just sweeps through. But I do know some of their biases. So I was presenting at 8 in the morning, I was like, what's going on here where this is $15,000 an acre, and when you cross the street, in the same zoning category, the same school district, how does it go from 15 to 40 just by crossing the street? And the tax assessor was sitting in the front row. She just raises her hand and yells out, "You don't understand." And I'm like, what did I miss? And she goes, well, these people have more property. The more property that you have, the lower the value, because it's a rule of land utility. You can't use all of that land, so we have to give it a discount. Plus, there's less people in the marketplace that can afford a larger tract of land. When you have less demand in the marketplace, we have to give it a discount. It's just simple supply and demand. The mayor starts laughing. I thought he was going to spit his coffee out. And I'm like, really? I get more of your limited supply and you give me a discount? Does this work this way with other commodities? Surely if I get a bigger diamond, it's got to be cheaper, right? There's less people that can afford a big diamond. And she goes, well, no, that's our standard. I'm like, where did the standard come from? She's like, well, I don't know. So I talked my way into an assessors conference to do a panel, and I asked them this very question. By the way, their magazine is called Fair and Equitable, and I asked them, how is this fair and how is this equitable? To their credit, they're like, it's not. I'm like, where did the standard come from? Did Moses give this to you? Like, who made up this idea? Like, I'm not a math person. I don't understand this. By the way, they love this joke. And I'm not making this up. They're like, you need to go talk to Larry. So I tracked this guy, Larry, down. I'm wearing the same suit. And I was like, Larry, where did this come from? He's like, oh, it's probably something in agriculture. But now that you pointed out that way, it isn't efficient for cities. It's not fair. It's not equitable. It'll just take a while to change it, Joe. This is how we're running cities? Completely ignorant of this stuff? And it's our own ignorance by not asking these questions. Talk to an assessor. Let them talk a little bit. Find out where their biases are. And it's not their fault. They've been programmed that she thought that was from the hand of God, that math was true. She's wrong. Understand how your community operates. So just to close with y'all, again, I showed these buildings. Here's yours. So this building is $13 million an acre. We ate at this restaurant here. That's, what is that, $24 million an acre? So this building is brand new, pretty dense, $24 million an acre, which is about the value of where the Jimmy John's is. Think about how much potency Norfolk has, and you got to catch up. By the way, that I grabbed the warehouse back there. The warehouse is tied to the headquarters. That's only pulling about $3.5 million an acre. And speaking of the warehouse, so this is your city in my county at the same scale, and this is it as a map. So y'all are 351 square miles, we're 600 square miles. You have almost double the density of us. You have 250,000 people. But this is your city area pretty much of where your urbanized area is. This is it floating over Asheville. So we're 45 square miles, but you're basically hitting Candler, Woodfin, but we've got other cities out here. We've got Black Mountain, Weaverville, Fairview is over here somewhere, right here. So this is your downtown area. That's the warehouse on the backside of that little downtown area. That's a really big parcel of land. And Dollar Tree, great for building your headquarters, awesome. But I couldn't help but not look at this thing because it becomes a lozenge in your downtown. Getting around that's going to be kind of complicated. If anybody's been to downtown Asheville, that's my downtown. Some lost civilization of humans built that for us in the 1920s, but that's a really cool, my downtown's worth $2 billion. $2 billion for my downtown. We pulled the data layer of your buildings. I want to just show you the way that I see cities. I tune off all the information and only look between the space between your buildings. This is what this is going to be your challenge. Your urbanized core works if it's walkable. If I can walk from one place to the other, park once and kind of get around all these different places, that walk is critically important for me. If you bore me, if you make it complicated, I'm not going to do it. Or worse, it becomes that netherworld. And you see people trying to walk through a suburban environment. On my way here, I saw these poor people just are trying to walk through a parking lot to get somewhere. We're not making the needs easier for folks. But look at the walk distance between my buildings and my core versus what you have here. How do you fix that? So that's my downtown area and how many buildings you'd grab in your environment. That's Asheville. If y'all have never been to Asheville, I hope you've been to Norfolk. Here's your property next to Norfolk, and you can see their downtown and capacity. So you're going to have to get denser. You just have to take a different attitude toward doing that. And for the folks that complain that I don't want density or I don't want to be New York or we don't want to have any development, I'm sorry, you're sort of in a position that you have to get yourself through. So that's the warehouse built over your downtown. Now their mall is huge. And I even told them when I presented there, I'm like, that was kind of a mistake to drop that into your core. But for those of you that know Norfolk, it was sort of a barrier that they built toward the east side. There was a bias toward the east side because it was redlined, and that's the area that did a significant amount of urban renewal and basically crushed that. You can see all the white space over here. That's basically a big scar from redlining. So I'm gonna be real, y'all bought a big suit. You got a 300 square mile area. Now you have to thicken up. So balance your development. Think about where you are as an egg. You know, you've got a lot of area, a lot of egg white, not a lot of yolk. One last example. Sorry, I know that I'm over. Leander, Texas did a TIF. Y'all know TIF? It's called TERS down in Texas. This developer approached us and wanted to do TIF in this development. And he wanted us to do the analysis for him. And I said, is the city supportive of it? And he said, well, the staff is. And I said, then we're not going to work for you. Because if we work for a developer, what ends up happening is the community, we're just the shill for the developer. So the developer was very mature and said, look, we'll give you all of our books, we'll give you all of our data, and we're going to step away. So it was arm's length. And the city was our client. We wanted to see whether or not it was good for the city. They ran a train line out of Austin to Leander. So Leander is like the next county over. It's in Williamson County. Here's the train station. So the developer is dropping this 115 acre development right here. Here's the college that they're planning, the area is planning. So he's going to build a main street. Let's kind of zoom in. A main street coming out of the college with a plaza. And okay, this is a different form of development than you typically see. Developers don't do this because it's super expensive to carry all those roads and sidewalks and plazas until the units come in. So what he's asking for is a 15-year tax break, basically. 2 city councilors were against it. 2 city councilors were in favor of it. We had 3 sitting on the fence in the middle. So this doesn't happen overnight. We've got phase 1, the main street comes in, it starts to butterfly out and thicken up, and then it builds out. It takes about 20 to 30 years for development to do this. They're asking for a 20-year TIF. Here's their city. They unfortunately got born at the wrong time. They basically incorporated in 1976. They have no downtown. And I said, look, this is what you look like. You never built a downtown. That's not on you. That kind of happened over time based on how we saw development. But here's your downtown phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. It's a different animal. So they're not like their cousins of Georgetown and Round Rock that have been around since the 1800s. You can see downtown Georgetown right there, or Round Rock, this little purple spike right there. So you're going to be adding yours in, boom, right there. What's kind of crazy is it takes the average value per acre of the entire city from 275,000 to 500,000. You double the potency of the entire city with a 100-acre development. And look, you still have all of this other green area to do whatever you want with. I'm not telling you to move into the downtown or you to move into the downtown. There are just people that want that. Give them the opportunity. So the other thing about that's not fair is they said the developer's not paying taxes. And I'm like, that's not true. This is what they're foregoing, this light blue triangle. So they're actually paying half the taxes, and it's going to rise with the value of the property. And then the TIF expires, or they call it TERS, and then everybody's paying 100%, right? So just to show them what it looks like, we cut the model at 2025. We just sliced it like a loaf of bread right here. And this is what halfway done looks like. Even halfway done, it's way better than everything else in the community. So when people complain that they don't want new development or they don't want you to figure out how to pay for the roads, ask them what they're paying in taxes. Ask them if it's enough for the cost of their pipes and roads that are committed to their property. This is fully built out. Now, the 2 no votes just wanted a Costco and a Target, so we're like, fine, we could do that. Here's your downtown. Here's your Costco and Target and Best Buy and Sam's Club. So you all are on the city council. Do you want a $60 million development, or do you want to invest 20 and get 700 million? So do you want a $60 million development, or do you want to invest 20 and get 700? This is for y'all. And then the work session happened. I finished my presentation. I sat down in the front row waiting for the council meeting. 2 swing votes came down to talk to me, and one was a school teacher. And she goes, I've never understood any of this for like the 18 months we've been talking about it, but when I saw that big purple thing next to the green thing, I want the purple thing. Cool. How we talk to each other critically matters. When we walk in the room and talk about mezzanine financing and they don't have time for that. She was a school teacher. She's not ignorant. She just never got the information in a way that she could understand it. Make a bar chart. This is just a bar chart on a map, basically. So y'all got a lot of egg white. That's going to be clear here. So you got to think about, are you doing other cores? How are you going to build it up? But you got to get serious about that. You got to balance out your portfolio. So think about like Kansas City's got multiple downtowns, or this is Covington, Georgia. Asheville. We've got 5 of them. So your downtown is going to be your potent golden goose, and you've been given a history here without building it up, and that's what you need to turn around. So to close on this, what do? Norfolk is $26 billion of value. And I told them, I said, look, you guys could sell Norfolk. I don't know where you'd sell it to, but you could go out and buy like, what is that, four Commanders if you wanted to. I'm doing this as a joke because the owner of the football team knows the towel bill of the quarterback. I know that the cups in our nightclub cost 5 cents a pop. Why do I know that? Because we had to figure out how to pay for it. So understand that you know these dynamics and stats. Understand your political consequences. There are people that want stable services. There are people that want low density. That means high taxes. Or there are people that are like, I want low taxes. Okay, well that means either more density or service cuts. But you can't have all 3. That does not exist. It's fantasy land to be talking this way. So like again, it's like just run out the cost of repaving that road to Phoenix. And just be honest with each other. Who's your dad or your mommy? Like what are you going to choose? And just again, seek out examples. Figure out who's gone the way that you've gone. I put Gwinnett County in here because y'all feel a little bit Gwinnett County to me. You've done that massive suburban growth all at once in a very big way without understanding it. You were basically coasting off the white flight of Norfolk. So thicken up, use your land wisely. This is going to be a critical problem. You need to take a different way of thinking on this. You can't just go in with big developers. It's going to be incremental. It's going to be smaller. You need to find a way to get involved. Don't just wait for somebody to do this stuff. Build your core and create others. You want to thicken up that downtown area, but there's this little main street right here. How does it thicken up? Non-taxable buildings isn't going to be the way that it's going to grow up, so you've got to find a way to make that happen. You need to work with this neighborhood. Know your cost and consequences. We recommend this with every city. You've got to know where you're bleeding out. We did this for Eugene, Oregon because they wanted to expand their growth boundary. Once they saw where they were bleeding out, they didn't change their growth boundary because they wanted to repair and recycle. Be agnostic. These are all just counting balls and strikes. This isn't judgment. I'm not telling you that you were evil or wrong or ignorant. It's just this is how every city is going, and you just have to be agnostic about it. We call this geoaccounting, right? We're just going to put your financial data on a map so that you all can see it. Your accountant doesn't care if you buy a boat, right? Your accountant cares if you can afford a boat. So just go into it with an accounting measure, make maps so people can see what's going on. Don't be judgy about it. And thanks for letting me do some math here and going over in my time. Thanks.
Thank you. I think we still got a little bit of time. Anybody got some questions for Joe? Bill?
Have you seen anybody do this work without cratering first? I mean, before it got religion, so to speak. Do you see good examples where they haven't had to see the urban core perish?
Durango is doing a good job. I mean, think of this. Cities are collections of people making human decisions, acting human. The same is true with most humans. That when people have their heart attack, that's when they start. Like for me, it's my dad's 7 bypass heart surgery. I didn't have that. He did. But when I saw that and knew that his father passed away from a heart attack, both those decisions and situations wised me up. I'm still overweight, you know, I still need to exercise more and eat better. I shouldn't have eaten the steak last night, but you're at a steakhouse. So that's human, right? So you're gonna make mistakes as long as you pivot and adjust along the way. So this practice that we do, no one was doing this before we invented it, like 15 years ago. And I did it because it was a recession. So when you work in real estate development, y'all heard of a recession? Like all of a sudden we weren't working anymore, and I was just going out to conferences and showing people the math and just giving it away, and then people just kept on hiring me, so I became a consultant. So, you know, my hometown's dead as a doornail. They made some really bad decisions. Asheville is the opposite. They got lucky, and they had buildings that they didn't tear down. So I just realized these are humans making decisions. So there's no perfect. Nobody's doing it exactly perfect. It's just you're going to adjust along the way.